I will be leading the next panel on technology as it relates to shaping the future of agriculture. Um, it's first and foremost an honor to be here and a pleasure to be sitting, quote unquote, with all of you from a distance. It's truly amazing, and to echo what Shai is saying, it's truly amazing what we could do nowadays online and virtually. So without further ado, I would like to get right into it. So again, thank you to the Botswana Investment and Trade Center for really having Empower Africa organize this panel. This panel is titled Technology and Shaping the Future of Agriculture. My name is Yael Birnbaum. I'm on the business development team at Empower Africa. And so really I wanted to start with asking a question to all of you and asking you to ask yourself, why are we here? Why are you here specifically? So you might answer something, of course, that's relevant and more short-term as I see it, like finding a partner or finding a client, finding an investor to support your startup or your operational facility. And of course, these are perfect answers and very relevant, but ultimately, the overarching theme that brings us all here together is our actual existence. So yes, this might seem a bit of an exaggeration, but it's really not. And as the saying goes, you need a doctor or a lawyer every so often, but you need a farmer 3 times a day. And so development in agriculture and food production was really born out of the dire needs of the human race. According to a McKinsey report in 2015, we will need to increase our food production by a whopping 70% by 2050 in order to accommodate for every single person on this planet. So they say that necessity is the mother of invention. So we're innovating right now to save and reduce our usage of scarce resources. We innovate to bring significant change to the process and methodology of sourcing, harvesting, and producing. We innovate to be more efficient and, more importantly, more humane. We innovate to see and hear from our local partners, to be able to do business respectfully, and of course, ensure transparency along the process. So in addition to asking ourselves why we're here, we should also ask, how are we specifically contributing to this definite and necessary change in the course of humanity? There are many challenges that we are out to solve together. Land is being utilized increasingly for residential and commercial activities rather than for farming. Water access and usage is limited. Farmers are getting older and older, and the younger generations are opting for more attractive professions that do not require physical labor and pay much higher salaries. These are all issues that are bound to create shortages of food, water, and land, and such a situation, as we know, may ultimately lead to wars. That means we have no choice but to be smart with our shared lands, waters, and the whole value chain from farm to table. This need to innovate has also opened up some great economic opportunities, as both Shai and Ezzy have mentioned. Over the years 2010 to 2015, investments in ag tech increased 11-fold to more than $5.4 billion in 2015. And most of those investments were made in the precision agriculture space. And so what you'll see and hear today on this panel are from some exceptional individuals who have taken that bold leap to address the challenges that I just mentioned. The innovation that you'll hear about spans across irrigation, seeds, shelf life longevity, greenhouses, plant-based alternatives, one of my favorites, fisheries and aquaculture, farm mechanization, fertilizers and alternatives, plant and animal conservation, and precision agriculture, of course. And the subsectors are using different technologies from material innovation to genetic modification, satellite imagery, smartphone usage, of course, artificial intelligence, and robotics and sensors. So without further ado, let's get to the panel. I'd like to introduce each one of our panelists, and I'll ask that As I introduce you, you just put on your video. I see that already Maoz, Roy, and Amit have their videos. Jan, Ricky, and Hill, if you're able to also put your videos on, fantastic. So we'll start off with Amit Noam, who is the COO of AgriTask. AgriTask is a world-leading agriculture platform provider that digitizes agricultural ecosystems, enabling better agronomic practices and access to more accurate insurance and credit-based products for farmers. AgriTask works in over 35 countries across 5 continents, serving clients like the IFC, Starbucks, Continental Re, and Swiss Re. Amit has an entrepreneurial DNA and has previous experience with strategic consulting and business development. Thanks for joining us, Amit. Riki, or Mary Van Gran, also known as Riki, director of Chobe Bream Aquaculture Farms, which is a brand of golden wrap. Chobe Bream is located in northeastern Botswana. They began their operations 8 years ago with reticulation systems and greenhouses. And since then, they expanded to fish farming of earth ponds. Their specialty is in farming indigenous species like tilapia. And in addition to their aquaculture operations, they also produce crops under center pivot irrigation systems and fruit orchards under drip irrigation. Thanks for joining, Riki.
Thank you, Yael. I'll keep my video off because my network is very unstable at the moment.
No worries, no problem. That's better. Okay, so next up is Jan Hendrik Stiglich. He's the managing director and founder of Luterne Farms. Jan is an avid farmer with a passion for the agriculture sector and people alike. Following his vision and love of land where he was raised, Jan established one of Botswana's leading horticulture and livestock operations in 2007. Today, his horticulture division employs 150 permanent staff and operates on 260 hectares of irrigated farmland next to the Limpopo River. The livestock division employs 25 permanent staff and operates on 13,000 hectares in the Sandveld region. Thanks for joining, Jan. Maoz Aviv, the Director of Agriculture at Empower Africa. Maoz brings 20 years of experience serving as Chief Agronomist and marketing positions at leading food and beverage and irrigation companies. Maoz has executed dozens of projects all over the world. His broad perspective has brought him to advising governments, multinational agriculture companies and institutions, startups, and of course, the farmers themselves. Thanks, Maoz, for joining. Roy Peleg is the CEO of Growing Smart. Roy is a senior lecturer at Mashav, the Israeli government's development organization, and is currently leading an agriculture training school curriculum in Ghana. He has deep experience in agriculture consulting and was formerly head of marketing and business development at the famed Netafim. Growing Smart collaborates with farmers, investors, governments, agricultural technologies, and input companies, as well as farming corporations and cooperatives. And their team provides strategic agricultural consulting to address the value chain holistically. Thanks, Roy, for joining. Next up is Hill van Schalwijk.
I said thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thanks for responding. Hill van Schalwijk is the CEO of Hill's Agrochemicals. Hill has over 40 years of experience as an agronomist in chemicals. He prepares and supplies customized spray programs per crop to farmers. Hill is originally a farmer and entrepreneur himself and is passionate about investigating and experimenting with new crops in Botswana, like coffees, vines, and leafy vegetables. So thank you everyone for joining today. It's good to see you guys also over these frequencies, and let's get right to the questions. So I actually wanted to start out, and I might direct certain questions to certain people in the interest of time over here. I wanted to start out by something that also echoed, Shai echoed, and was mentioned earlier, the importance of youth, really. And how do you think that we can attract more young people to transition into this field, into the agricultural sectors? And I'd like to start, please, with Jan.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I think you started with the toughest question with me first. I think there is unfortunately a perception in agriculture that it's not for educated young people, and it's so not true. Although you have the normal laborers that you introduce on the farm and stuff like that, but there's so many sectors in the farming industry and the farming community that actually suited a young, educated person to become a farmer and to be actively involved in the farming industry. And that it just don't make sense that, you know, it happens so much that if you don't inherit a farm, you end up not being in the industry. And it's basically just because of cost. It's so expensive nowadays to start a farming enterprise. It doesn't matter where in the world you are. And so obviously through education and international exposure and financial backup, I think that's the only way that we're going to be able to attract more young people into the farming community.
When you say financial backup, you mean more from the government, more kind of programs that are directed to get the youth involved?
Yes, obviously, from the government, if there's certain projects available or that's been running for young farmers to go into, but from a financial institutions also, you know, if they don't get the backup, it's just a matter of time before they leave the industry as well, you know. So, and the only way that we can keep them in the industry is obviously through a mentoring program, and then obviously then financial backup at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying it's key to the bottom line. That's what it comes down to. I would like to ask the same thing. Thank you, Jan, for your wonderful response. I'd like to ask Hill the same thing. Do you have any comments on that? Any further things to add?
Thank you very much. Thanks for being on this panel. I really feel privileged to be here. And Jan, thank you. At least I know your face. Guys, yeah, I'm involved in South Africa and in Botswana. And as you know, the political situation in South Africa currently on land distribution, that we have a lot of people coming into my office. And there were actually somebody yesterday here that wants to acquire land from government, but he's got zero experience. He's got a lot of aspirations. And I think government is going to give him land, and it is actually a guaranteed failure, because the process of getting these guys or a young aspiring farmer, because he's got all the aspirations of that. But unfortunately, even having an agricultural degree today, and you give somebody a piece of land, that's a fertile exercise. I've seen it too many times, and it just doesn't work. So in Botswana, Jan has got a lot of experience in Botswana because he's got some people that government sent to him to work there as well, young graduates or end of year, final year graduates. My feeling is that I think there's a bigger part that we need to play with educating people after graduation or before choosing a career. That farming is one not for stupid people, because in the old days they said the stupid kid go farming, the less intellectual one go farming. So there's, according to me, there's a feeling by guys, okay, I'll go farming. Today it is the intellectual guy, the guy with a lot of ideas that actually make a success of farming, and he needs a mentor for 4 or 5 seasons before he can maybe left alone. It's like somebody trying to become a pilot. You give him an aircraft and you give him and you say, go, it will crash. But he needs to be with somebody for a time, really close. The other thing as well is the guys come in with the idea of quick money. They think, man, I'm going to plant 2 hectares of cabbage and I'll make my little sums and next week I'm a millionaire. It doesn't work that way. It's too complex today. I see it from a fertilizer, soil science, spray program, marketing, the whole caboodle. I think there's a lot of work to go in to preparing people and getting them right for that job. So it's a very short answer to a 2-day answer, but I'll keep
Yes, so amazing. So it really is about mentorship, as I hear you saying. And if I can just get in, you know, a minute or less from Roy, since I know that mentorship is right down your alley, and and excuse me, and training, I would love to get your perspective on this as well, Roy.
Sorry. Thank you, Yael. Pleasure to be here today. Well, obviously, people who know me here on this panel know my passion for agriculture knowledge and how I see that as a key factor. But I want to take us one step earlier and say, I think we need to think also about farming and to go from owning to earning. And what I mean by that is that one of the biggest, I think, limiting factors we have today is scale, the scalability. Imagine that each of us would have a textile factory at home to produce his own clothes. I mean, that sounds very romantic and nice to have, you know, your own farm, but scale is the limiting factor. You cannot anymore cultivate a 1 acre or not even a 10-acre field and still expect to keep it visible. So I think the key is there, and that is also linked in a significant way to knowledge, because also in knowledge to try and provide the knowledge on a farmer base, on a private farmer base, is also almost impossible. We are talking about hundreds of millions of farmers around the world, and in Africa, I think it's very clear that, you know, a very large part of the population is defined as farmers. I think a new approach has to combine these two things: scalability and knowledge transfer.
Fantastic. So thank you. Yeah, I think we're hearing that the youth will really be pulled in by financing, by various different programs, and of course mentorship, meaning that they get the proper support. And then Roy's last point about making sure that scalability is a factor which is taken into place. Amazing. I think everyone, you know, is really thinking about this question more and more. I would like to move on to the next question. So we all heard about drip irrigation, the Netafim and Nan and the Kibbutz Dan story, which of course was revolutionary. But what, in your opinion, is the next big thing that should be adopted specifically for the Botswana agricultural value chain? And is this also the same technology for Africa at large, for also globally? And I would like to get Amit's perspective on this.
Okay, thank you so much, Yael. It's a real pleasure to be here. And I'll answer this question, but I'll also connect it to the previous question because I think it's connected. I think we're in the beginning of a digital revolution in agriculture that will enable to connect the entire ecosystem together, and it will also enable technology attracts young people. It's able to facilitate knowledge transfer. It's able to facilitate what Ruiz said about scale. When you start connecting the ecosystem together through digital technologies, and you're able to take a farmer, another farmer, and another farmer, and put them together in the same ecosystem, suddenly you have the visibility of the entire agriculture value chain. And then you're able to start optimizing the value chain, and you're able to have economies of scale, and you're able to make each farmer part of this bigger thing in order to be able to make each one much more profitable than he can be by himself. And the additional aspects you can add to that is once you're able to have this digital infrastructure of all the agriculture in the space, you're able to start connecting the insurance companies that are able to come and insure the growers, and the financial institutions that will be able to come and provide much more affordable credit, and of course the input providers and the buyers. And I think this digital revolution of connecting all the parts of the value chain together will do a significant change in the next 10 years to come.
Fantastic. Maoz, any thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you again, Yael. Thank you for everybody to join. I will actually take a Amit answer, and I definitely agree that is the next and this is the future. But I will take it for another perspective. I will treat the flow of information, the ability today to transfer and receive a lot of information from a small farmer somewhere in a very remote area, all the way to big organization, governments and institute and everybody. But today we have the ability to control and get all this information. It can actually take us and support us in the two vectors of activity: the agronomical part of understanding exactly what's happened in our field, in our plantation, and the ability to identify and to get relevant and online information on disease, on weather changes, on various huge various of relevant information. But from the other end, to be much more relevant and to get much more information on the commercial part of our activities. What are exactly the price of the commodity? What are the other companies are doing? Price of inputs. I can actually look for alternative. The context will be much higher. The flow of information from both sides and the data revolution, it's for sure, from my point of view, this is the future, and this is a big boost to the agriculture sector.
Fantastic. So it's sounds like the digital, that's the big play in connecting everything and all the important information. Actually, the next question I want to direct towards Ricky, and more specifically to Jan and Hill as well. We're really here to talk about four things: Botswana, agriculture, technology, and business. It's obvious to anyone who's really following the trends and developments that are taking place on the continent that there are some really great business opportunities. But what do you think is necessary to be in place for attracting more investments in agriculture, specifically in Botswana? What can we do on that front? Ricky?
Hi, Yael. Yes, you know, we started off as a new investors in Botswana about 8 years ago, starting right from scratch. There was actually nothing here. So it is a bit of a challenge. And I think what we need is a policy framework to minimize the tax burden and bureaucracy. If someone wants to invest in agriculture or any industrial properties for farming or processing of food, you know, there's currently, I think, a 30% tax burden on people or investments coming from other countries or elsewhere, where they have to pay 30% tax. I think we need to look at that, how it's going to influence investing in agriculture. And then policies should be in place to maximize the dividends for food products. We've got, our challenge here is we are very isolated, very far off locations in Botswana. All the food producers in Botswana is actually, you know, very far apart. So we need to look on how can we maximize the dividends for food products there. And then I think funding in place for entrepreneurs to streamline marketing and the distribution of our food products. Currently, we encourage entrepreneurs to get funding to buy their own freezer vehicles to distribute the fish locally and to the rest of the country, because we're in the northeastern part of Botswana. So we are very down. So we need to get streamline the marketing there. And then also structures like, I think, Meat Commission and localized food markets should be fully operational. Otherwise, people will not invest in the meat industry, for instance, like feedlots. We need to secure the marketing and the offset of the product. And I think also to subsidize input costs like fish feed that we currently import at very great cost from Zambia. I know the government also subsidized some other input costs in terms of maize production or crop productions. And it is, I must compliment BITC and Botswana government also for protecting farmers against cheap imports at the moment and dumping our farm products like for chicken and stuff like that. It makes a very big difference. And also I think it is a challenge to invest in aquaculture specifically because of the long term that you have to wait before you can harvest. You know, we grow the fish from egg size. We've got our own production line, but it takes about 9 months to a year before you can harvest. So it's quite a long-term investment.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ricky. It sounds like a lot. You have a lot of suggestions for the government there in changing different policies. And I hope that also you're able to have that direct channel, and hopefully something will change. Maybe even today from this panel session, you have Julius and team from BITC. So, you know, this should be a good, direct, clear channel. Hill and Jan, any one of you want to specifically weigh in on, as to your own experiences, if you've dealt with trying to raise capital from outside? What are certain barriers, or how do you see the investments, you know, increasing or streamlining through?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's obviously government is already doing a lot for investors. I think the main thing that we can be so happy for is that we've got a perfectly stable political country at the moment, and I think just that alone for investors obviously must be a huge attraction to come to the country. But obviously, I think we as a let's call it the Botswana nation, I think we should look more into products that we can produce that that uses very little water. Remember, it's still Botswana. It's we don't have all the water in the world. We don't have the biggest population in the world. So obviously, I think we have to look at something that's a little bit more that uses little water, that can withstand high temperatures, that's drought resistant, and that creates employment opportunities. And because employment is always going to be a problem, and I think in the agricultural sector, that's the way that we can attract and basically create more employment opportunities. And then obviously it's something that can contribute to biodiversity as well, and that can be produced with limited infrastructure. And the reason I'm saying that, and that is our biggest problem in the country, we do not have infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So the whole farming community, it doesn't matter who it affects, every single farmer that's involved in farming is having challenges because of infrastructure. So if infrastructure can be, a better infrastructure can be in place, obviously it's going to make a huge difference. And I think that's where investors can come in to help us to create better infrastructure for the farming community.
Wonderful, thank you. So infrastructure is the big thing to attract more and more investments, and also kind of shifting to products that are using less water, which would be interesting to see as Botswana is very reliant on its livestock production, and we know that that's a big water consumer. Hill, any last thoughts, maybe less than a minute, so we could move on to our next question?
I want to add something, please.
Oh, sure.
When I'm listening to Jan, you know, it's remind me completely the story of Israel. Our founders' father, when they started in the Israel country, they say, we are not so many people. We don't have water at all. 60% of the area, it's desert, but we need to do agriculture in order to feed ourselves, but in order also to control our life. So I'm telling to everybody, you know, we already done it. We had a lot of experience in taking this approach, of how to do the best agriculture in the world with a short amount of water, but use it and do it in a smart way, in a precise way. There is plenty of solution that we are more than happy to bring to Botswana and to cooperate and, you know, to open new ideas, new opportunities, and to take it one more step forward. Part of what I'm doing as the Director of Agriculture at Empower Africa, it's to lead our consulting services. And part of it is to bring new ideas, new technologies to different countries in Africa, and, you know, and to identify a certain obstacle, as you mentioned, the lack of water, the lack of facilities. But if you take both of them and you bring the right crop, okay, in the right place, it's more than reasonable to solve it. So I will be more than happy to join to you, as we spoke already and we know each other, and, you know, and do something nice together. Thank you.
Thanks, Moaz. Hill, any thoughts here?
That was a good input from Aviv there, because we need that kind of technology. Infrastructure is a problem. I know Jan, for instance, he sits in the south of Botswana, or in the southeast of Botswana, fairly close to the border. And Ricky is up in the north of Botswana. She's got electricity and everything there. And I'm where there's no infrastructure. There is absolutely no electricity, borehole, water, solar. We do all that ourselves there. And that is a hampering for me. I'm importing coffee machines now out of China, and I have to now do a lot of infrastructure and spend a lot of money on putting up that facility where there's no power, for instance. The one thing that came to mind now to me, and I've been thinking about this for a long time, the infrastructure issue in Botswana would be solved by a railway line from the south to the north of Botswana. I think that's something that's way overseen. It will help us a lot with our transport problems that we've got currently in Botswana. I've got a vehicle that went out of my office here where I'm sitting now. I'm 1,000 kilometers from my office in Panamatenga. It went out here last Tuesday. That vehicle just left the border this morning. It is Tuesday. He sat at the border for 7 days, transporting product into Botswana. He only traveled 220 km in 7 days, waiting for COVID results. He's going to be on the road for another 4 days before he returns here. That's a serious problem. And so, yeah, the infrastructure is our main issue, I think. Funding, just a quick one on funding. For me personally, I've never asked for any, I've asked for assistance in funding, but have never been able to get any funding. All these things that I did and invested in Botswana, I did out of my own South African funded money in there. Maybe I must go to Jan and ask him his tricks, and Ricky, how they get funding in Botswana. But for me, it's a difficult, tedious thing. It's months and months of waiting for things like that. So, okay, that is my short piece there. Thanks.
Thank you. Certainly, it's great to get everyone's perspective on that, and kind of transitioning to the next question, which is somewhat similar to this past question on the issue of investments. But if you had the chance to sit with some of the biggest development finance institutions and government development banks, and they said you had access to unlimited funding for any project of your choice in agriculture specifically. Yeah, I see you shaking your head, Hill. Everyone loves that, right? Who doesn't love unlimited funding? So which project would you go for? What kind of, do you have a dream project? Let's start off with Ricky, and I really want to just open the floor. I think everyone has a different answer here. So Ricky, start us off, and then we'll navigate to others.
Hello, Jan. Yes, I've got a very short answer. I will quickly pick aquaculture again, as it is actually the fastest growing commodity in the world at the moment, and we can provide much needed and relative cheap source of protein. Million people die a year of hunger. We can produce a lot of protein, and fish at a very short, it takes a long time to grow them, but you can produce a lot of protein in a smaller system and using less water, less land.
Ricky, we're having trouble hearing you. I don't know if everyone else is experiencing the same thing, but
yeah, that is what
buzzing in and out.
We actually have to put focus on what the previous panels said about infrastructure. We need to upgrade our network. So Empower Africa, start with that. It would be a great help to get us proper and affordable networks and electricity and stuff like that. But for us to invest in aquaculture, I think like in Egypt, you know, Egypt is the biggest aquaculture producers in Africa, and they produce about 1 million tons of aquaculture, and small, mostly of that from small-scale farmers. So we can also do a similar thing in Botswana, and I think take off. We're trying to get the government excited about aquaculture and producing protein and food at big scale. So, but we need to take this industry forward in Botswana. We need people with a passion, with the interest and skills, and not scared to work hard. I think we must stop talking now and really put our hands to the plow, so to speak, because there is a lot to do, but it is a very exciting industry to embark on, and I think we should invest more in aquaculture.
So I would guess that actually by knowing that you're directing an aquaculture operation, but thank you so much. So Amit, what would you say to, let's say, one of these big financiers that wants to support your dream project?
So I'll give it a different perspective, because of course the physical infrastructure is super important, and it needs to be invested. But I think that building a digital infrastructure of for example, mapping the entire country, understanding who grows what where, having all the data of all the farming done in the country, is a way to attract a lot of foreign investment. Large multinational banks and insurance companies are not going into spaces when they don't have the data that is critical for them to work. And I think that it's something that can be implemented quite fast, and do, for example, a 1-year project to implement and build such a digital infrastructure. And I think that can be a shortcut to many investments going into Botswana.
Fantastic. So you answered in 2 different questions. You answered one. I like that. Fantastic. Roy, what do you say to that?
Well, I'll go back, since a lot of the things that were said here, I totally agree. We understand it's a lot. It has to do a lot with infrastructure. Infrastructure is also, I would say, critical for the shelf life of especially fresh produce. I mean, it doesn't make sense to travel 14 days with a produce that may have maybe additional 2-3 days to survive before it's not good for consuming. But I think if I would have this, free access, I would not just ask for funds. I would also ask for the regulation to become more involved, the regulator to become more involved, but in the favor of the farmer, and not trying to limit the farmer. Because I imagine that farmers, water production would get the same attitude like farming. We would be left without water in some places, right? We don't see people wasting water, but we do see agriculture produce being wasted, because there is a limit to how much free economy can be the game in agriculture. So I would go in this direction. The second thing is that if I look at what we did in Ghana, within 5 years, we have 400 people, students that graduated from the university, and they are 100% good candidate to join the extension services, the professional extension services. imagine what we could do with 400 people in Botswana with less than 3 million people. I mean, we could do a revolution in terms of knowledge transfer, and that together with building the scalability, I think that's where we could, cover the gap, because consolidation will take time.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jan, Hill, and Maoz, we have about 2 minutes for all of you. We actually got extended 5 minutes here. So just a brief, even a statement about like your dream project or the project that you would ask to do, and to kind of give us a perspective of what that would look like, and what's needed.
I will go for something challenging because I love challenges. I will go for a desert farming. Take an area in the middle of the desert and build a successful zone of food growing and food processing. Make Botswana the next exporter in agricultural commodity. First of all, produce the food to Botswana and then even export it to all the countries in the surrounding area. Take a special area and make it green and successful. Demonstration to the rest of countries in Africa.
So Julius and team, I hope you just heard Maoz. Jan and Hill?
Yeah, I think for a farmer, unlimited funds is a dream. I mean, I think
that's why I asked it, because I really want to tap into your creativity.
Oh yes, I don't think you're giving me enough time to, but I think as farmers, we always going to go down to be practical, and we have to look at what we have and how we're going to do it. And what I love about Maoz is going to the desert. I think we have the opportunity in Botswana to actually do that. And I've got a specific product in mind that I think, and I want to mention it, a prickly pear is something that I think we can take to the desert and produce the masses and utilize it for all the things that it's, I mean, it's for food, for fodder, for healthcare. There's so many things for leather. There's so many things that you can use it for. And the nice thing about it is you can actually introduce massive production plants and stuff to diversify as well in it. And I think for Botswana, I think that's the way to go. That must be the processing of it is obviously the way to go. And I think Botswana is the place that we can do it with our limited resources, specifically water and our drought problems that we're having.
Fantastic. Hill, your final thoughts here?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that will be a brilliant idea if you can have unlimited funds, which is just a dream. But I will establish four, 5 crops in Botswana that has never been grown there. The one is coffee in the northeastern part, vines. I'm investigating vines now that we can actually double crop vines now, like the Israelis do, and like they also do it in Chile. Grapes, citrus as well. It's excellent up in the north. We can do that. Dates, and then hydroponic vegetable production. That's 4 things that I've got experience with, and that's 4 things that I will, if I can get land and money, that is what I will do in the north.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So we are nearing the end here of our panel. Thank you again to all of our panelists here. Amit Noam from AgriTask, Ricky Van Gram from Chobe Bream Farm, Jan Stiegling from Lucerne Fields, Maoz Aviv from Empower Africa, Roy Peleg from Growing Smart, and Hill Van Schalkwijk from Hills Agrochemicals. Thank you again. I think we discussed over here the importance of data and digitization to really build a digital infrastructure to back up the agricultural value chain. We discussed food zones. We discussed exploring with coffee vines, grapes and citrus in the desert, really building up the infrastructure in order to attract more investments from outside and really provide for a better operation for all the various agricultural things that are taking shape. We discussed youth and the importance of making sure that they're more included in these kind of activities, whether it's through financing or better mentorship programs. So I think we covered a lot of good ground. We were able to also hear what each and every one of you, which way you would direct funds, should you get specific funds for a project. And so thank you again for this amazing opportunity. I would like to conclude now, and of course, Empower Africa was honored to lead this panel, and very thankful to our partners at the Botswana Investment and Trade Center. Julius, thank you so much. Julius and team who of course organized this BITC event. It was really special to be here and able to share these brilliant ideas from all over the world, literally, and to come together and work towards a better and more secure future. Thank you to our audience, of course, everyone joining us. And I encourage you to reach out and engage us. If anyone would like to connect further with any of our panelists, please feel free to email me. My email is yael@empowerafrica.com. Thanks again, and everyone have a great day. We're actually going to move this forward to Jay Kalisher, who will be leading the next panel on VCs and entrepreneurs. So over to you, Jay.
Thank you, Yael. Well done.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Yael.
Bye-bye, Jael. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.